You're listening to Prosper in the Kingdom, the podcast where faith meets practical strategies to help you become healthy, wealthy, and wise. Join hosts Jon Cleaver and Wendy Lee as they share insights to equip you in your journey toward abundance, spiritually, financially, and beyond. Just a reminder, every situation is unique. The content of this podcast is for educational purposes only and should not be taken as specific financial or medical advice.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another Prosper in the Kingdom. And for those of you that thought, man, did I miss an episode last week? You did not. We took a week off, summer break, so to speak, and we are back live. And we're going to kind of switch things up today. So again, I'm still your host, Jon C, and we've got the ever awesome Wendy Lee. How are you doing today, Wendy?
I'm doing good. Excited for today.
Full swing baseball. Did you enjoy the week off?
Yes, I did enjoy the week off.
There you go. There you go. Fantastic. Well, so, Wendy and I have had some conversations about, kind of the format of the show. And, I think we brought a lot of good information, but I think the need out there has shifted a little bit. So today we're going to be starting something new, and I'm excited about it too. And we're going to call it Notes from the Kitchen Table, right? And, why that title, why Notes from the Kitchen Table? And so, after having done this for over a decade, I've been doing this now for about 13 years with my own company. I've been in financial services for over 30, if you can believe it or not. And after sitting across the table from hundreds of families, I realized something. And it came to me as an epiphany after a conversation with Wendy. The most important financial conversations in America aren't happening in banks. They're not happening at, broker centers. They're happening after dinner, right? Over a cup of coffee, around a kitchen table, or maybe at a Starbucks or a coffee shop or something like that. So after talking to Winnie, we're basically going to be doing that. We're going to bring you one of those conversations to you kind of every week, right?
Yeah, let's start talking about like the real things that, the questions people are asking, like what are the struggles, like bringing it down to the real life, everyday stuff. And how do we, rather than giving you, 5 steps to do this and 6 steps to do that, which you could probably look up on ChatGPT at this point in life, right? But what are those real conversations? What are those real, stories that we can relate to, that we can learn from? And
Well, and somebody might ask, okay, Jon, what inspired this, right? And again, just having sat down and realized that people don't need another financial tip, right? They need someone to ask them better questions, and really to spark that light bulb in your mind of a different way of thinking of things, of maybe doing what everybody else is doing and pretending that it's working isn't really working. And so that's it. And so today's question, you may have heard me say it before, but today's question is going to be, are you where you thought you would be financially at this point in your life? And Wendy, I'm going to ask that kind of directed at you, if you don't mind sharing kind of your personal journey, and because I think it's something that most people have never really sat down and asked. They just kind of nod and go through the motions every day, get up, go to work and do this, that, or the other. But now it's like, okay, hey, really, when you pull back all the emotion, pull back all the noise, and just ask yourself that question, and you, the listener, you, the viewer, I'm going to ask you the same thing. But Wendy, are you where you thought you'd be financially at this point in your life?
Absolutely not. No. I mean, I thought it's like, and I've said this before, knowing what I know now, if I had known that when I was 25, I'd totally be where. If I knew it at 35, I probably would be where I wanted to be financially. But a lot of these money lessons, these things we talk about, I never heard till I met you. And for so many years in my business, I didn't know what to do with my revenue. I had no idea, And we've talked about this a lot, but it bears, it's worth repeating that as an entrepreneur, it was always just make more money.
Well, and I think it's the same way for, it's not just entrepreneurs, it's W-2, right? I mean, it's like, make more money, get a promotion, create more income. That's going to fix all the problems.
Yeah.
And what happens is it doesn't, right? And that question, I ask that question a lot to clients when I'm sitting down, typically for the first, second time, as we're going through their financial roadmap. And what it does is create silence. That's the initial response, because so many people like, I've never really thought about me. I guess I'm doing okay, maybe.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. They think they're doing okay. I'm out there, I'm working hard, I'm hustling, I'm doing as good as the next guy, right? Or next gal. I'm working hard, I'm a good person. But in the reality of it, when it comes to their finances, they truly and simply just don't know where they stand.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. We actually have that question on basically our client intake, conversation is, are you, what are your goals for retirement and stuff? And how are you on track? Like, are you on track for that? And I mean, people are like, I don't know, probably not. I doubt it. Right?
Well, why? And I guess my question to you, Wendy, is why do you think people avoid asking themselves that question? I mean, because it's not like there's not a lot of info out there, right? I think almost too much. Everybody's got the latest and greatest or whatever. But why do you think that people avoid asking themselves that question?
I think it's easier to play ignorant and not look at the real financial picture if you're not where you want to be. There are those people that have it together. Okay.
Yeah.
And,
and I would say you're right. About 10% of the people that, and they have it together in most aspects, not a full,
not all. No.
Yeah. Not 100% across the board, but they're way ahead of where, but again, looking at the majority of conversations we've had, and you've been doing this for, 5 years now. I mean, it's one of those that people just don't know, right? They just simply don't know. And
you don't know what you don't know, and what you don't know is costing you a lot of money and time.
And that's the thing. They're not seeking out. And that's one of the things that, I had my wake up call when I was probably, I don't know, late 30s, maybe 40. And what I realized is I wasn't where I thought I would be financially. I didn't necessarily ask myself that same question, but I was looking at my 401k and, kind of my savings account, things like that, going, I feel like I should be much further along. And so I started asking questions, and the answers I got, because I had a financial advisor at the time, because I wasn't in the industry at that point. But, I asked, hey, oh no, you're doing fine. You're right on par with everybody else. And it's like, oh, okay. And I just took that at face value thinking, oh, well, when you kind of dig into it, it's like, okay, well, everybody's kind of behind, so I don't want to be there. But, and I think that's part of the conversations we have too is, about retirement, right? And it's not just, with me, it's not just retirement, it's about wealth, but retirement is obviously a big piece of the conversation. But a lot of people get so tripped up, and I know you've seen this too, because we talk about it when we get, your 20 somethings come in wanting to retire at age 50. Oh, I'm retired at age 50. Or you get your Gen Xers that, I want to retire at 62 because that's what their parents did, when they had the pension and everything else. And for the boomers, their retirement age was 62 to 65, Gen Xers at 67. And I'm going to tell you, millennials and definitely Gen Z, you're probably looking at 70, 72 in the traditional sense. And I know some of you probably, no way, right? But here's the reality. I want everybody to hear this. And Wendy and I have talked about this ad nauseum, in regards to that retirement age. You guys want the secret truth? Retirement isn't an age.
Right.
Okay. It's not 62. It's not 52. It's not 72. It's not an age. Retirement is simply math. Okay. It's, like Wendy said, I wish I could go back, and I think most of us agree to that, right? If I could go back and talk to my 25-year-old self about stacking cash. There's several different components with regards to building wealth, building retirement, and, obviously time, right? What else do we have? What's the other big factor?
Money.
Yeah. You got to have seed, right? You got to have that, and most people, what do? They eat the seed, right? Live for today, YOLO. There was a whole thing about that a few years back. But it's time, money, and then compound growth. And, let's talk about that. I mean, because most people don't get serious about, stacking wealth. Most people, and you, the listener, oh no, I start. Okay, that's great. You're the exception, not the rule. But I think most people really get serious about it in their mid to late 30s, maybe 40.
Yeah.
I mean, I was doing some stuff, but had no idea what was going on. Yeah, I was just putting cash in where I thought my 401k, right?
Well, and I feel like a lot of people we talk to that did start saving in their 20s and 30s, put it in a 401k and have since cashed it out because life happened. Because they weren't educated on the true power of that compound growth and what it can do. And that time, we talk about the rule of 72 and looking at that against you too. It's not just about growth, but it's about your missed opportunity by pulling that money out. But I really feel like the majority of people we talk to that did save stopped, took it all, and are starting over in their 40s and 50s.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of that, which is, it's, just to be transparent, in 08, when I got hit, I was downsized and it was like, oh man, I had to pull out, I think, 15 grand out of my 401k at the time. I didn't think anything of it. It's like, oh, it's only 15 grand. I'll put that back. But again, now knowing what I know, again, I wish I could go back in time and know what I have in my head now. But, looking at the whole compounding and really that 15 grand, I pulled out 15 grand, paid the penalty, paid the taxes. But really, I pulled out, let's see, 15 goes to 30, 30 goes to 60, 60 goes to $120,000. So that's 120 grand that I cashed out, that maybe not quite to that extreme today, but at least north of 80.
Yeah.
I don't even know what I did with it. I think I paid bills, a couple, it was like not that big of a deal. So it's really crazy when you start thinking about the little things that we do that can either really help us or really hurt us, and why it's so critical to get started earlier rather than later. But even if it's later, do something again. It's all about that, the math, right? And that's one of the things that, going back to that retirement age, most people that I've found will spend more time planning their trip to Disney World than they do their retirement, which is crazy. But I get it, right? Because if you go to Disney World and anymore, and I've seen all these things, I'm a Disney, fan, right? Not the political side of what they're doing, but the whole, when I was younger, had younger kids going to the parks and stuff like that, that family experience, right? Looking at, going there, I mean, now it's like, I think I saw the average family of 4 is going to spend $12,000 for a week at Disney World. I'm assuming that's staying on campus and everything else, but it's like, that's insane. But people want to maximize that. So they'll plan, okay, we're going to hit this park. We're going to do the fast pass over here, or whatever they call it now that they charge you for. And we want to get the multi-park pass so we can do a couple different things. I mean, so they spend all this time planning it, but when it comes to the retirement aspect, most people throw some money in the 401k, and what I've typically seen is they're doing the match, or maybe upwards of 8%. I don't see a lot of people putting away more than that. And so they're not putting enough away, and they don't really plan it out. And I want to retire at 67. Well, are you going to have enough? I have no idea.
And they don't account for taxes.
Or inflation.
Right?
Yeah, inflation. It's like, so if you're putting in, and a lot of people I think are wisening up to the whole tax thing, right? I mean, they're looking at the ticker and it's like 30, I don't even know what it is now, 36 trillion and counting, and it's just, running off the rails. So they realize, okay, taxes are probably going to go up. So they're putting more into the Roth strategy, which is great, but, you still have inflation to account for. And, that's been as high as 9.5% within the last 4 years. And there's no control over that from your aspect. And yeah, you can buy precious metals or whatever, but I'm talking just in a general analogy. But, so it's like, oh, I want to retire at 55, 60. It's like, okay, so you retire at 60. Statistically speaking, you're going to last until 85 to 88. So that's 25 to 28 years of costs going up 3 to 4% a year, and you without an income.
Yep.
And that's really where it's, and again, I'm not trying to have people get scared about this stuff, and I know Wendy's not either, but it's one of those things that it's all about the math and just, what you can do now and asking yourself, is this moving me closer to or further away from my goals? So
yeah, and having a plan, understanding where you want to end up, why, if you want to, we ask people how much do you want coming in your retirement years, not counting for inflation. They're like, 12,000 a month. Well, why? Like, what, or 3,000 a month. And you're like, are you going to do anything? But really having those real conversations. And then, and you always say this, it's about building a machine that's going to pay you over and over and over. And you're building an asset. You've got to figure out how to build assets, whether that's a business, whether that's what we talk about with protected asset classes, whether that's like whatever that looks like, dividends, whatever. But you've got to create assets that are going to pay you through time, because like you said, like we're supposedly going to like live longer because all these advances in technology in the medical field, right?
Well, in reality, I know, I don't even want to go down the whole American food kind of platform, but we're eating generally healthier, and I think a lot of people are waking up to that now. So you're starting to see people. So that's going to result in longer life, right? And then the medical and the system is broken. I get it with the whole health insurance and costs and all that stuff, but reality is, American health system, you're getting better treatment and you don't have to wait till next year to get your allotment to get fixed, right? And so, we are living longer in reality, but it goes back to that math question, right? And it's not anybody's fault. It's the way the system was designed, right? Nobody showed us the math. Schools teach us how to earn money. Okay, they teach us to go out and be able to learn, to be able to follow instructions, follow direction, and to take tests, right? And to show that we've learned a skill or learned something to be able to go out and now do a job, which, and there's a whole sidebar tinfoil hat conversation. I could go down that road too, but I'm not. But, the thing that they don't teach us, and it's not anyone's fault, but they don't teach us how to build wealth, and it's just, that's bottom line. Nobody ever taught us this stuff. And so that's one of the reasons that Wendy and I created the whole 3M framework, right? To keep it simple, to keep it realistic, and, just to give a simple platform, if you will, for people to understand, hey, here's what I can do to catch up, or at least have some kind of, strategy. So you walk us through that a little bit, Wendy, about the, briefly, the 3M framework.
Yeah. So make, manage, and multiply. First, we got to make money, right? And really that's about cash flow. And how do we make more cash flow, which means we have to increase our income, decrease our expenses. You can only decrease your expenses so much, and you got to increase your income. So we talk about multiple streams of income, how to maximize what you're doing currently. And then manage. You got to tell your money. You got to be the boss of your money. You got to be the steward. Yeah. You got to be in charge. You can't let your money control you. You've got to control it. And then third is multiply. Learn how to put that money to work for you. Instead of, like you say, instead of eating all the seed, your money is seed. Instead of eating all the seed, you want to plant some of it so it can grow and create the harvest. And, I go back, I love reading the Bible. It's so cool.
Pretty good book.
Reading the Old Testament, and like their wealth was, breeding their animals and growing their crops. Well, we don't have that these days, many of us, right? So we've got to learn how to multiply our money, and the different ways we can do that. So, but yeah, and it's all in conjunction. You can't baby step your way. That's that whole baby step in your way to wealth. You're losing way too much time doing that. You've got to really have all the things going at one time. So,
well, and you've got to have a game plan, right? Yeah. And that's the thing that, makes me, and don't get me wrong, I appreciate that there's a lot of information out there, but what I've seen is there's a lot of information overload and a lot of bad information out there too,
And then inaction.
Because
we get paralyzed with all the info.
Well, and that's the thing. It's analysis paralysis, right? And the first step, going back to that Disney World, right? the first step of planning is to know where you are. Okay. If I'm going to Disney World in Orlando, Florida, and I'm in Jacksonville, Florida, that's going to be a completely different route than if I'm in Dallas, Texas, getting there. And I'm going to take the family truckster, right? A la vacation. But you look at the framework and what you need, and that's like, okay, I need to understand where I'm at. And that's a simple, kind of an assessment. And then going, where am I trying to get to and by when? Right. And that's where that 3M framework can really come in handy. And we've got a whole process, called the Safe Money Roadmap. We've shared that with you before. But really looking at the 6 steps that it goes through. Number one, it talks about the cash flow, right? What's coming in versus what's going out, and showing you how to control things and really developing a spending plan so you can still enjoy life today, right? But you've got your money prioritized. You're assigning every dollar a task, right? You're either spending it or deploying it. Okay, I've used that analogy before. Then we look at, if you've got that debt, how to get that monkey off your back, because that's spending income that you haven't even earned yet. You're already spending it with credit and things like that. And then, looking at, I need an emergency fund, because it's not a matter of, you look at the economy out there right now, it's scary, right? Layoffs are happening left and right. Everybody's saying it's great. And right now it looks like it's great, but it looks like it's way overheated in the market and things like that. So I think most people are at a consensus of something's about to happen, and not in a positive way. So that's why that rainy day fund is there. And then looking at, okay, I need to build this wealth. I need to build this, I use the term empire for you and your family. And it's not just for you. It's not about greed. It's about what you can do. It's about the freedom, to be transparent. It's really about the freedom that it gives you, not, hey, look at my shiny new widget, right? It's about the freedom to come and go, the freedom to work for who you want to work with or not work at all, whatever the choice is. And then, to be able to then go to protecting it, right? Putting a moat around my castle, so to speak. That's what protected asset classes you were talking about. And then lastly is that legacy piece. That's what that Safe Money Roadmap does. I mean, that's the game plan, and that's why we built it. But again, I don't want this episode to kind of create fear. As you can pick up, it's much more conversational. But the whole point is to create hope, because you can do this, right? You can get there. And if you're asking yourself in these 40s, it's still a lot better than asking these questions in your 60s, right? So I don't know if you've got anything else you want to add into that, Wendy.
And even if you're in your 60s, we've helped people in their 60s too. There's always something you can do to put yourself in a better position, but you've got to surround yourself. You've got to put the people in place to help you get there. And so that's what Jon and I do.
Yeah, exactly. So let me just put this out there. If you and your spouse haven't talked about where you are at financially, tonight might be a good night to pull up 2 chairs at the kitchen table, grab a coffee, grab a soda, grab a glass of wine, and start the conversation. So if you'd like to know where you stand, I'll put it out there. Download that free Safe Money Roadmap. Just simply go to safemoneyroadmap.com. Again, we're all about keeping it simple. Fill out the information. It's designed to help you see kind of where you're at and start building a plan. Mention the show. It's completely free. Do it, do with it what you will. But at least get some kind of plan of action going and start heading in the right direction. So I'll close with that. But Wendy, thanks again. And until next week, keep building your legacy, one wise decision at a time. Check the show notes. And again, click that subscribe button if you love the show. Help us with the algorithms. Much appreciated. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in to Prosper in the Kingdom. If this episode added value to your day, be sure to like and subscribe. And don't forget to share it with someone who could use the encouragement. For more resources, head to prosperinthekingdom.com. Let's continue building lives of purpose and abundance, one step at a time.